Well, I actually think Harvard Law School is not a bad breeding ground for cosmopolitanism. I mean, I don't think he spent all of his time in the ward politics of Chicago. But look, one thing that I think it's, that from the standpoint of an American president, your time is the most valuable asset you have, and it's what is in the shortest supply, is the actual personal time of the President of the United States. And one's experience as a president is that everybody wants a piece of you. You know, the President of the United States, is, I once wrote, is a combination of Queen Elizabeth and Maggie Thatcher. He's the symbol of national unity, and he's the working head of government. So you have to get your picture taken with the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. If you have the Boy Scouts, you'd better have the Girl Scouts or you'll pay. And it's, all of these kinds of things. And it's amazing how much face time foreign leaders want with the President of the United States. If you look at all these summits, how many summits do they, and every time they want to, G7, G15, G20, G40, at all of which they want you to come and spend 3 days, not really doing any work, but hello, how are you? And smiling for the cameras. So I think any president of the United States, when presented with the opportunity to spend 5 hours at a dinner for the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, is going to say, isn't there some other way? Now, I actually think there are a lot more uses you could put these state dinners to. I'm for state dinners. One of the things is that what a great way to reward campaign contributors. It's, this is fantastic, and none of this embarrassing Bill Clinton putting them up in the Lincoln bedroom or something. This is perfectly straightforward meet and greet with Queen Beatrix or whoever it might be. And they feel good, you look good, and so on. But it is a colossal waste of the president's time. Normally presidents feel.
So Bush should have done fewer?
Like I'm saying, I'm not sure. If he had done more, what would it have helped?
Well, I think, let me turn to you.
More lipstick on more pigs.
I don't agree with you, and I don't agree with you, except on one point. I do think the president's time is extremely valuable. But I think it was a very serious problem for George W. Bush that he was not seen as an internationalist. I think he did this country serious harm, and I say this as someone who worked for his father, who was an internationalist, who understood the importance
I agree with these things, but how much better not to have adopted, not to have let everyone think you were introducing a radically new doctrine of preemptive war. That would have done more than 100,000 state dinners. So what I'm saying is, the problem with, I think it's a symptom that Bush maybe didn't do more in the state dinner. Clinton actually didn't do that many state dinners either. I once wrote that I thought he should do more. But it is, again, it's also in a time of domestic austerity. I have to say that I think there are a lot of unemployed auto workers and others with unemployment in the U.S. Obama is now looking into 2 years of these kinds of headlines.
Are you sounding like Jimmy Carter?
I'm just saying that there are a lot of Americans out there who look at this as, that in Animal Farm, when the pigs invite the neighboring farmers. Oh, I can't get pigs out of my head today. But the pigs invite the neighboring farmers over, and the pigs are all dressed up and with the farmers. A lavish state dinner for foreign dignitaries is not necessarily the signal an American president needs to send out.
It had to be lavish.
Well, what? Fine. So Big Mac, we're ordering in Domino's.
Serve California wine.
That actually.
What would you advise Obama to do? And part of the question was also, what would you advise the president to do to project as an internationalist? Or maybe he shouldn't. Maybe it's not necessary.
Let me just remark about the internationalist thing and George W. Bush and so on, because you mentioned Woodrow Wilson. I think the two presidents, in fact, one is remembered as an internationalist, that is Woodrow Wilson, as something very positive, when in fact he was just as Bush interested primarily, and as a scholar at Princeton, by domestic issues. W. Bush didn't pretend anything else when he, in fact, was elected president. They were both dragged into international affairs by wars. Right? World War I and 9/11. The one, in fact, used the same principles, Woodrow Wilson, in order to create what was to become the United Nations later on, while Bush, that is with the peace as the main goal, while Bush used the same principles, American fundamental principles, to justify a war.
Yeah.
So that's they come from the same sort of thing, but one is sanguine, I would say, and the other one is very much into the intellect, just as Obama today. So I think Obama is also a nationalist by heart, more than by heart, perhaps by mind. I think his own reflections of his own condition as a black American, what you described it as not African American, but Kenya and so on, which comes down to the same, I guess, in terms of experience throughout the country during his life, if you wish. But his own thinking about himself, the question of identity, what's the idea that is America, and how should be his place in it, and so on. All this has fed his own thinking about what America should be as a project, which is an expression and a good expression that Walter uses in his book, The American Project, with the two coins, the two sides of the coin. That is to say, the domestic issues, the social contract, the coming together, the unity that was one of the main messages of his campaign, and how you project those principles abroad. I think is attention, sensitivity to the intricacies of international situations and the sometimes contradicting cultural currents that make a society. You mentioned Turkey, the hell of a place for that, right? I think that drives his thinking, so he seems sometimes a little bit hesitant because he's too construct, he's too cerebral. So there's a question of style, there is a question of method. And as far as the method is concerned, unlike Cheney and Bush, he's more like Reagan, and Theodore Roosevelt for that matter, understand the role of restraint, the role of cooperation, and the prime importance of a national institution and dialogue among cultures, one should say. The Cairo speech, the speech in Ankara, and a few others have shown that very clearly, that it is a question of method. He's been around for less than a year. I think you should give him time. But I think he is intellectually a nationalist.
Yeah.
Let's go to those of you in the audience who have been sitting patiently. I've seen lots of hands go up. We will start with this gentleman here. If you would tell us your name and your affiliation.
All right. Edouard Tétreault, with the French think tank called Institut Montaigne. And just passing by, we suggested notably that France shares its seat at the UN Security Council with Germany in order to build up a European seat. My question is, you raised a fundamental question regarding the link of the transatlantic relationship between the US and Europe. If we go one step further, and when we look at the level of deficits in the US budget, say in 10 years' time, what will be the incentive for US constituencies to elect a US president to keep financing NATO bases in Germany, Spain, Poland, etc. And if there is no incentive, what happens next?
Thank you, Edouard.
I think that is an interesting question. I would expect that there would still be, the U.S. has been slowly repositioning forces away from Europe and into more active theaters. I think the establishment of an Africa command, basically moving Africa out of the European command in the American military and setting it up on its own is sort of a further step in this direction. Interestingly, this is also true in the State Department, where resources are being shifted away from Europe and toward other parts of the world, much to the distress of many of our career Foreign Service officers who are looking forward to that term as U.S. Consul General in Florence. Now they're going to Kano, and it's not the same.